are back with another episode of InsideX on MAVTV here. This is episode number 8. We're flying through the weeks. Good news this week, Ontario tracks are open. We've seen Alberta tracks are open, Manitoba. Things are opening up and we're getting back to riding, hopefully racing soon. This episode is brought to you by Data Video. All the stuff in the studio here. The camera's bringing this live feed to you. Parts Canada, we support the sport. Rockstar Energy, go to 7-Eleven, grab yourself the new XD Thermo. And Royal Distributing, Hoosier Off-Road, Cardo Systems, those in-ear systems. You can talk to your mechanic, your spotter, and Yamaha Motor Canada. Today on the show, we're going to go back to Walton Transcan. Last year, we crowned a couple of champions, the GDR sweep of the MX Tour. We're going to check that out. Parts Canada prediction. It's the third part of the 250 class. We got 4 great riders we're going to have a look at. Insider trading, we're going to talk about amateur national championships. There's 3 big amateur nationals across Canada. We're going to take a look at those. Our guest interviews for the day, we have the newly Monster Energy Kawasaki rider, Marshal Weltin, the number 19 on the Green Machine, as well as another team manager of a Green Machine, Julien Perrier, and he's going to join us for a little talk. But just before we get Gauldy on the show here, we're going to take a look at a couple commercials and we'll be back with more InsideX. I'm back with Ryan Gauld. Good to see you, Gauldy. Another week, another episode here. We're going to get into insider trading, but I noticed that you've been riding over the weekend. Tell us a little bit about the Ontario tracks that you visited.
Yeah, I decided to get off the couch, if you will, off the COVID seat and get out. I've been fortunate enough to kind of ride myself with my kids. I have a little private track down the road. A friend's got some property. So I've been able to ride, but this weekend I was able to get to Moto Park, Walton, and Gopher Dunes, and it was amazing. It was like a breath of fresh air. It was like I just got let out after an injury or something. I like my bike, my gear, everything just felt so fresh and so new. And I got to see a bunch of people I haven't seen in a while. Of course, doing the social distancing thing, which is amazing. All the parks really had a good control of things because there were some big numbers. Everybody was excited to get out with the parks being open, and of course the weather was absolutely beautiful. But yeah, just get in, riding. It was awesome. It was awesome to see the vibe. People are excited, man. And I tell you, there is no shortage of dirt bikes out in the land of Ontario right now. I'll tell you that right now. I think the shops are over busy because of the downtime. It's really opened up the eyes and saw people are getting excited to get out of the house, and they're choosing dirt bikes right now. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's good to see, and it's awesome to see it through social media. Obviously, I followed your family around there, see the little guys ride and all the tracks, so it looked like you had a great weekend. But another thing you mentioned before the show is you've been talking to all the regions, getting them the proper paperwork to get this thing back rolling again. And I know you mentioned you talked to Ryan Lockhart out in BC. Just bring up to the base of what they're doing in BC right now.
Well, with the hard work that we've done here in Ontario, we were able to get our sport motorcycle racing classified in the Phase 1 reopening plan. So right now, racing is on the docket, and the AMO, my company here in Ontario, our race group in Ontario, we're going to start racing June 14th, Father's Day, at Gopher Dunes. Obviously, we got to do a few of the guidelines and do a few little extra things to make sure things are running properly. But what I've done is get all that info from the government in Ontario, plus the MRC sort of toolkit that we built into their hands and say, look, knock down the doors of your local MP. Tell them, say, look, we are in areas of huge acreage that can get outside and do lots of work. We can stay social distance. We can keep things clean, keep things under the guidelines and the restrictions that are implemented right now. And of course, we're not within city limits. We're outside. So, like a golf course or a marine that has these restrictions, we are able to do better than that at a motocross track. So, talking to BC, obviously that is where the WCAN, the Western Canadian Amateur National, is hosted. There's things in motion there. I've given the documents to Ryan Lockhart, another great talker and advocate of what we do. So hopefully things get moving. I've given Alberta, I've given it to every single region that the MRC deals with. and said, look, I did this. I just called our MP office. I actually talked to Doug Ford in Ontario and got our wording in there. So why can't every other province do it as well? And hopefully things get moving like they are in Ontario right now, because it's exciting here, and we want it to be exciting across our nation so everybody can share in what motocross does. I mean, people talk about mental health and stuff like that right now. Well, people choose golf. People have their hobbies. We choose motocross. And right now, everybody's struggling mentally because we can't get out and do our race fix. But it's coming. We're working hard, and now everybody's got their hands on some good documents to push it forward. And we're crossing our fingers that it makes it work like we're here in Ontario.
Yeah, and it brings me to my next point there, Gauldy. We want to talk about the amateur nationals across Canada. And obviously you talked about BC and the possibility of having the WCAN, which is the Western Canadian Amateur National. And it's usually the first one of the three that we have. We have the WCAN, the ECAN, and the Grand National Championship that ends up in Walton. So just touch base on those three events and how important it is for a young rider to get into that system and get riding those nationals at an early age.
Oh, 100%. I mean, just like any sport, you start locally, and then all of a sudden you break out into a little bit more regionally, and then you get provincially, and then you get nationally. And motocross is no different. You go to your local region, you go there, you ride, you choose the beginner class or 50s, you start coming through the ranks. And as you get through the ranks and you want to get noticed or get scouted like they would in the regular stick and ball sports, you got to go to the big events. And in Canada, we got the WCAN, the ECAN, and the TransCan. And those three events really dictate who are the players that could be the ones for our sponsors or teams to look at for the future. Basically, anybody that's on a team right now, other than maybe an American rider, and even some of them, have got their feet wet and got their sort of noticeability at these big races. And at those events, the eyes are on them. So for the WCAN, they kind of get it first. Like we always do it right around that July long weekend, Canada Day long weekend. So we get to see sort of the best of the West of the amateur classes. And then, of course, we go to the ECAN, which is held in Quebec for the last bunch of years right there. And it's such a great event, hosted at a national park at Deschambault. And, of course, then 2 weeks later after that, we go to the TransCan, where basically the ECAN, WCAN, and everything kind of gets pushed into one. And it just showcases the best talent. And the idea behind it all is to kind of put the pressure on a young racer looking to advance. If you want to be the next Colt Fasciotti, Cole Thompson, Phil Nicoletti, or even if it's a Ken Rox or Eli Tomac, you've got to cut your teeth at these races where pressure is a thing, longer motos, and there's something on the line. So therefore, a team or a sponsor can see what is inside you in those moments, and if they want to hire you to become that champion down the road, or if they see what's inside you to become that champion down the road. These events are ultra important, and of course, we want you to be a part of it under the MRC, and we want you to be a part of it to support that region. But it's up to you to choose whether or not you want to be a part of it, to just be a guy that's a hobby, or be that next champion right there. And these are the events that can put your skills to the test.
Yeah, and just talking about championships, just a list of names, I jotted down right before the show here. Colton Fasciotti, champion at Walton TransCan. He's a champion, obviously, 6 times. Tyler Medaglia, champion Walton, champion Cole Thompson, Dylan Wright, Jess Pettis, Cabin Benoit. Those are a few that have been champions at Walton and then went on to be national champions. And now we could see the next of Tanner Ward and a Marco Canella who have been champions, and others along the way, Sam Gaynor, those kind of kids coming up through that system that could be our next national champions.
100%.
But anyways, Gauldy, I appreciate your input as always in the insider trading this week of the amateur nationals. I think that anybody that's in that regional or provincial level needs to take their chances and get to those national championships and try to get into that top 10, top 5, maybe get a podium or maybe win a championship. But that's it for insider trading. We're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be back with InsideX.
There's nothing like race time. Something that's super undescribable. Nothing gives me that same adrenaline rush. It's all or nothing. Your heart starts beating faster.
A lot of nerves.
For me, I still get nervous.
You know, the adrenaline.
You feel focused. Everything else goes away. You're in the moment. I think that's the feeling that we live for. One goal, one vision.
All right, Kyle, it's that time. Once again, Rockstar Energy recap coming at you. 250 Pro Moto number 2. Moto 1 saw Dylan Wright dominate again, but in this one here, it was the West is best out of the gate. Tyler Gibbs getting that whole shot on that privateer Kawasaki, but right up the inside, a man we hadn't seen since Arena Cross, basically. Jairi Mitchell takes the lead early on, Kyle.
Yeah, Mitchell out front there, but did you see Gibbs give the number 1 as he took that whole shot there? And then you see Marco Cannella with, I want to say, his best start of the season here, and he is trying to track down that lead. But look at that, the number 5, Tyler Medaglia coming after him.
Yeah, Madags was hungry on this day. Every time he got a start, you could see Madags wanted to push, and he's always done good at Walton. You kind of referred earlier on in the show there, we talked about him being a Walton Trans-Can champion, and he showcased his skills here. Look at him just weaving it out there. Mitchell going wide, and he opened up the door. Madags, the experience right there, and they nearly clipped. They kind of wave away from each other right there, but man, the battles are great. Madags getting it, and here comes Dylan Wright, though, man. The kid, once again, just showcased it doesn't matter where he starts, what he does, he can make it happen. He just flies by these guys as if he was riding against amateurs out there. I hate saying that about the guys, but man, did he ever make people look silly in 2019.
Yeah, watch him score.
Oh, my God.
Wow. Unreal.
I need to get him in my kitchen.
Dylan Wright.
I need to get him in my kitchen and clean that up, scrub that up.
Possibly the last time we will see Dylan Wright on a 250. Maybe later on in his career he'll come back to that class, much like Tyler Medaglia.
Yeah.
But that the fans didn't know that at the time. But man, did he ever put on a clinic his last ride?
I feel like Tyler Medaglia put on a sign that say, "People never do what I did in 2019." So I don't know if Dylan Wright will ever do that. But awesome to see Marco Cannella here. We never really got a chance to talk about him much all year long. He did great the year before in 18. Remember, he got a 3rd overall there. And on this day here, he was a player. He really showcased. He kind of lost a little bit towards the end of those motos, but he was really kind of in a good headspace. He's grew up riding here, a definite champion, amateur champion there. But Dylan Wright pulling away. There's Madags chasing. Madags never let him get too far away, which was cool to see because Dylan Wright was really kind of the boss dog all year long. But you just watch him. You just look at him, and he's so strong on the bike. And you can see in the background there, those fans. Remember how the red smoke and the naked bodies painted with the number 1 and the number 19. The GDR Honda team really had a great following on this one here. It was awesome to see. It was such a great way to end this year for Dylan Wright.
Yeah, they painted Walton red, that's for sure, with the wins in both classes in the championship. But Marshal Weltin, and that was his last ride on the Sky Racing Husqvarna. So lots of last ride here, but Dylan Wright was just untouchable. Good for Medaglia to end on a high note with a 2-2 on the day, but nobody's going to touch that red plate at number 19 as he went on for his first outdoor championship.
And you see him lapping the MX 101 Hayden Halstead to touch on his teammate Luke Rensland. Didn't even make it in the motos because he got injured in practice. Ends up losing 3rd spot in the championship, going all the way back to 7th because Madags, Welton, Cannella, and Ward had such a good day. They all moved past him in there, and unfortunately for Luke Rensland, but Dylan Wright 1-1, Madags 2-2, Welton 4-3. An awesome day, such a great closeout in that 250 class, man. It was fun for us to watch up the booth that day. Were such great action.
Yeah, and it rained the night before, so it made for good, ruddy Walton conditions like we always like. We're going to jump over to the 450 class now, Gauldy, and you can start us off.
All right, Kyle, here we go. 450 Pro Moto number 1. It was championship day and the 6th one for Colton Fasciotti, and he would have himself a pretty decent first moto here. But out of the gate, once again, I tell you what, man, it was those Yamahas 1 and 2, but Cole Thompson sliding up the middle. I believe we gave the RoyalDistributing.com whole shot to Keelan messed it by an inch, but your bro Thompson slid in there. And Kyle, he would not look backwards this whole moto. It was an awesome ride.
Yeah, his best ride since Wild Rose there, but just an insight on that. He actually didn't even finish second practice. He went out for 1 lap and dealing with injury. And there's Gerke actually dealing with an injury, a bad off the start there. He actually collided with Tony Alessi, who was watching on the sideline. But yeah, Cole Thompson didn't finish second practice, wasn't sure if he was going to race, goes out there, gets the whole shot, and then sometimes you get that whole shot, adrenaline kicks in, Gauldy, and you're good to go.
You know what, Kyle? I feel like you didn't tell us this on race day. That would have been nice to know in the TV booth, my friend.
Oh, Phil having a little incident here coming up. And let's see.
Like his bike stays running, though. Let's 6 time through full. I watched this a little earlier to make sure he's studying up. I believe that was Phil's, other than the Mendoza crash there, that was Phil's only mistake like all year long. And for a guy that's got his legs and his arms and his butt hanging off his bike constantly, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that and actually you forgot to mention the Sandali where he ripped the rad off running into the back.
Oh, that's right. Wow, that was Gerke's fault, though.
Yeah.
That was Gerke's fault. He crashed in front of him.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So Cole Thompson having a ride like he's used to back in the amateur days. He had many motos like this in the amateur day on that number 16 KTM. But the battle was on here with Phil and Colton Fasciotti. Phil trying to make up for that mistake he made earlier.
Yeah, they were just going at it right there. The top 3 really stretched themselves out. We kind of were chirping Phil a little bit there when that battle. Marquia and Cartwright just behind these guys. They had a battle all moto long as well. But watching Cole here, I mean, obviously, Kyle, you've been a part of his right from the womb here, watching him ride stuff. But man, myself, when I see Cole ride, this looks like backyard for him. He looks so comfortable on this soil. He is one of the most winningest riders on the Walton scenery there, and I believe he has actually held the most amateur championships on the Walton soil as well. So it's not a surprise to see him ride this good, but it was, I guess, a surprise after hearing about the injury there for sure. Man, he was impressive on this day.
Yeah, that Deschamps boat crash really bit him hard. And yeah, you're right. This clay is what he grew up on. He's so comfortable on that throttle control when it gets like even the hard areas, or if it's super tacky stuff, he's very strong, and the throttle control is unreal. Minimal clutch use, and he was pumped to get this one here.
I know. It looks like he actually throws a full hardball baseball pitch right there with that arm, man. He might miss his calling. Yeah, that was good. I like it right there, man. That was awesome. But it's cool to see him happy. He had a bit of struggles all year long there, a couple of injuries like you alluded to. So it was good to see him come out there and say, you know what, boys, I know I got the speed. I didn't put it together here in 19, but I'm coming back for 20, and we're going to make it happen. And there, that showcases once again. The 800, again, we talked about his starts, but the one thing I was watching when I watched this earlier, he comes into that first turn so hard, but you never ever see him slide wide or throw it away. He's so smart and calculated when he gets to that first turn. You see sometimes those guys get that jump and they kind of maybe go too wide or something because they're too excited. Alessi, man, he just holds on to it so good. And there's 6-time right there, just kind of lingering. And wild to see here, Phil Nicoletti not even in the top 5.
Yeah, no, Phil, again, having to come from behind. But go back on the 800, so true. A lot of people talk about his reaction time, Mike Alessi. But a lot of it, you know, if he's not getting the start, and look at this battle shaping up here, Phil Nicoletti going around the first moto winner, Cole Thompson. But yeah, Alessi can make it, control that first corner real well. But he was down 14 points coming into this day, and he was not able to seal the deal or catch up any points on his teammate in there. Phil Nicoletti, Cole Thompson battling here for that overall early on in this race.
Okay, so like I said to Phil about Phil there, he made that mistake. You watch this moto, his legs, his butt, his bike is everywhere as we see Fasciotti making the pass on Alessi. Alessi just didn't have anything for the boys on this day right here. He would kind of fade back. He'd go 4-4 on the day, but Fasciotti and Nicoletti would go at it. And Nicoletti, once again, is going to showcase us here in a little bit, those outside lines. But look at Marquier. This guy was a player early on that day, and man, he was impressive.
Yeah, that was the best we've seen Marquier all year. He started with us in Minnedosa in the mud, and he kept getting better. But this is the first time we've seen him get a good start with the top guys. And he hung early, but I think he burnt himself out trying to go that pace. These top 5-6 guys are on rails, especially the top 4, the 2 Hondas, Nicoletti and Thompson there. They're all 4 of those guys can just pin it all the way through the 30-minute moto.
And here's this outside line right here. Look at this. The Walton track always offers so many options because of the ruts. Phil takes the long way, goes around Alessi, no problem right there. He was the only guy making moves in this moto from back in the pack and passing guys. Everybody else kind of solidified it on. As I say that, I forgot. Here goes Cole Thompson going by the 800 right here, putting my foot in my mouth, making a great pass. Cole shutting the door there on Alessi. But Phil was... You love watching the guy because he tries so hard, man. Look, like right there, the bike, the legs, they're off again. You know, he's just like, I feel like he just flexes the bars and he's just angry in there and just going crazy. And here's a beautiful outside pass on Fasciotti for the lead.
Yeah, he made up a lot of time in those few laps there. And like you said, feet and arms going everywhere. And he caught up to Fasciotti and he started yarding him right away. And it was a very impressive moto. And on a track that I feel like it doesn't favor Phil Nicoletti's style because it's very precise, lots of ruts. You see him go through this section here. And he was just on the rails and getting it done to get that Walton sword for the day.
Yeah, like you said, this doesn't usually play in a favor for a rider like a Phil Nicoletti, but man, he was impressive, and there it is right there, the number 1 going over. A little close for my liking right there. If that was the 6th time, I might not have jumped that one, but 6 championships wrapped up right there. Phil Nicoletti gets 2 overalls in a row to end that season, showcasing that, of course, he could have been a factor without a couple of things. Meston and Marquier having a great day. Cartwright, Dowdy, and Sam Gaynor in the top 10. Got himself another top 10. It's done. The 2019 season right there was finished, and what a year it was, man. I can't even wait till we get back to gate drops. I'm super excited, Kyle, and I got, like I said, riding this weekend, man. It just can't wait to watch these guys go at it again.
Yeah, I can't wait for that first gate drop, but that's the closeout for MX Tour. We're actually going to bring AX Tour to you next week. We'll start those recaps. We'll go through what's Abbotsford, Calgary, Sarnia, and Barrie, and then move on to Supercross. And hopefully we don't have to get all the way through these recaps. We can get some actual racing going, Gauldy, and we can start recapping the live stuff. But that's another Rockstar Energy recap in the books. We'll be back after these commercials. time for another Parts Canada prediction. Gauldy, I have 4 riders in the 250 class I want to talk about. One rider that actually recently announced his retirement. We'll give him some props there. Weston Rosina. He grew up in that era of Jess Pettis and Dylan Wright. What are your thoughts on Weston and calling it a career?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, it sucks to hear that, but it's also very understanding. It's very hard to make a living as a pro in Canada, and it's also very hard to just do it with a half effort. You have to put everything in there. You have to sacrifice so much, and it's understandable. Weston needs his retirement speech, if you will, on Instagram. Basically said he's got to go out and get a real job and start paying for things. He's not getting any younger. So he'll be missed for sure. The kid had some talent. He was an aggressive rider. He fit well on in the scene with that Pettis and Wright thing. He just couldn't find that extra little level to get himself just up to that pace of those guys, whether it was a mental game or it was bike issues or sponsors, whatever it might have been. He just can never get that edge. But he'll be missed on the gate, but we wish him well in his future endeavors. And I bet you as soon as he's a smart kid, he'll end up finding a great job and be one of those guys that comes back and races the vet classes and sees his back of the track. As Cal, motocross never leaves your blood fully, so we wish him luck, and I know we'll see him again soon at the track.
Yeah, and actually, we've probably seen him sooner than later. I actually spoke with him this week, and he's actually he's got himself a 125, and he wants to do the FXR premix racing. So we'll see. He'll still be able to, have his normal.
That's
job
not cool. No, these guys aren't allowed to ride that class. That's not fair. That's not fair.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be for retired.
I know he is retired now, but let's get to some of the racers that are still in the program. And one we have on today, Marshal Weltin, the newly signed Kawasaki rider. What are your thoughts on Marshall going into this year, Gauldy?
I'm a huge fan of this kid. I just met him last year. I know he came to Walton a few years back and stuff like that. But, man, I'm a huge fan. He's born and bred on the Club MX scene there. He's part of Phil's entourage, if you will. And he always makes fun of Phil. So that really obviously gives you even more credit in my eyes. But I love the pickup for the Cowie team. He was hungry last year. He held the red plate. He won overalls. I truly believe that he is the guy with Rensland to be able to give a chase for that title for sure. And just recently he went down to a big race in Iowa for the Justin Brayton thing and won like 7 of 8 motos against a pretty stacked field. So he's on it. He looks like he's fitting the bike well. I have no doubt in my mind once we get back racing and he gets into the country when the gate drops, he will be a factor for the 2020 MX2 title.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I had witnessed him riding the Cowie over the wintertime just before the whole COVID thing hit, and he was flying very aggressive on that bike. And just having that support, I think, is just going to take him to that next level. Obviously, seeing him win an overall, have that red plate for a bit. I think this bike here and this team behind him is just going to excel him even more, and just being comfortable with the Canadian scene going forward. Next guy on my list, Gauldy, the new GDR rider for the Honda team, Tanner Ward. He's moving into that role, kind of filling Dylan Wright's role from last year. What are your thoughts on Tanner this year?
Well, he's got big shoes to fill, that's for sure. 6-time champ leaving, Dylan Wright now a 2-time champion moving up, and him filling the shoes that he's got to have big feet to fill them in. I believe he can. He's a strong rider. He's got lots of talent. He fits well with that team. He's very local, so he can go there and test and do kinds of things. And now that Fasciotti is actually doing SSS suspension, I believe that could be even a better link to all those things as well, because Joe Skid lives very far away. So I see a good thing from Tanner Ward. I honestly can say I don't think he'll battle for the championship with Welton, Rensland, and Pettis. I hope he proves me wrong, but I feel like he's just missing something of the nastiness and a bit of belief in him like those guys have, and maybe a little bit of experience of leading those big-time races. But I know he was going to paint that red Honda well up on the podium a few times, and we'll see good things out of Tanner Ward this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to be a podium threat every moto. But, the Rensland, the Pettis, and the Welton, I feel like are the guys to beat, and those guys just have that bit of a hunger where they'll stop at nothing to win those motos and win those overalls. And the last person I wanted to bring up obviously grew up as a rival. Tanner Ward, Marco Canella was always right there. They battled it out. I think Marco Canella had a better go at the amateur career, but now it looks like Tanner Ward's starting to flip the script. What is your thoughts on Marco this year?
Another kid I'm a big fan of, man. I loved watching him as an amateur. He came to a lot of my local Ontario races, and I got a chance to watch him. I actually kind of worked with him a little bit as he was making his move into the pro class. And I see a very similar situation of, like, if we could bring up an old adage of Richard Gray. Extremely talented, works hard, but once the gate drops in the pro scene, even a Kyle Stevens kind of that, I'm going to name a lot of guys that actually used to help. It's kind of funny that way that works out, but I don't know what it is. I don't know if they believe they can do it, and you know they have the skill set and everything like that. Marco Canella is arguably one of the most talented and skilled riders in the country, but for some reason when race mode kicks in, he just can't seem to find that inner perfection or guy that needs to be up on the top thing, much like Tanner when the gate drops. Against those guys, that experienced guys like your Madags or Dylan Wrights, those kind of guys like that, where they just know how they got to drop the hammer. And I actually just saw Marco at Moto Park there on last Thursday, and he's excited. He's hungry. He's been working with his dad doing the painting thing, so he's hungry to get back at it. And he knows this year is a big year for him with the MX 101 team right there. Obviously, with the year, there's a lot of cuts and things going on, so he needs to have a good year if he wants to be a part of a team next year. Or unfortunately, I could see a speech on Instagram like a Western Rosina where Marco Canella steps back and becomes just a regular guy. I don't want to see that, so let's put it together this year, Marco, and make it happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he needs to have a big year, and just I think one breakout ride on the outdoors where he gets up and battles for a lead or an overall would
a little taste.
In the right direction. A little taste.
A little taste.
But no, I like Marco, a great kid and a great family behind him. So I hope all the best for him this year. I'm excited to see those guys dropping the gate there at Gopher Dunes. But that's another installment of Parts Canada Prediction. We'll be back with some more riders next week. But we're going to move on to some interviews with these guys. Marshal Weltin up next.
You've got the ride, and we've got the parts to keep you going. Royal Superstores, with massive selections of products no matter what your power sport is. Top brands you've come to trust. Huge selection, amazing prices. Your one-stop shopping destination for the rider in you. Royal Distributing, Canada's power sports leader. Shop online, by phone, or in one of 4 retail locations. Fast coast-to-coast shipping right to your door. Royal Distributing. Eat, sleep, ride.
Before the lights, before the cameras, before the crowd roar, before the gate drops, before the first turn, before the finish line, the podium, and the champagne. It's just me and my gear.
Welcome back. I'm now joined by the new Kawasaki rider of Monster Energy Pro Circuit, Marshal Weltin. Marshal, good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no, just before the show we were talking, you actually, I was going to ask you about quarantine, but you've actually been racing the last couple weekends. I seen you did the Justin Brayton one, and then you said you just did a local one. You've been staying pretty active down there.
Quarantine's been good for me. Luckily, I'm not in, a place where it's really isolated, like out west in Cali or up in Michigan. It's been really great in the Carolinas, so I'm lucky to be able to still be racing.
Yeah, and plus staying at Club MX, there's always fast guys down there, so every day is pretty much race day there. You mentioned Michigan there, and that's one of my first memories of you growing up. You were a few years younger than my brother, and racing the 85. I remember the number 285 ripping around some of the Baja and Redbud. Tell us about your amateur career coming up. Did you do Loretta's down there? What was your situation?
Yeah, my amateur career all the way up until I was about 17 was pretty weak. We were just local riders, kind of going on the weekends. Me and my brothers, my dad, we had our trailer. We'd all go race together, and it was just something fun to do on the weekends. Yeah, like you said, Cole was always at, we'd see him at Baja or Redbud and just waxing everybody. And my dad and my whole family, we'd watch Cole and dang, he's so smooth, he's so good. We'd always kind of look up to Cole man, how do you get that fast? And it's cool to that Cole's where he's at now, because I've watched him all the way since he's on little 65. So he's kind of I've always paid attention to him. But yeah, I never really even looked at motocross as a serious job until I turned 17 through my last year of high school. I ended up coming down to Club MX, and we did a 2-week training camp just to try to sharpen the skills in the spring to get a head start on local racing in Michigan. And I don't know, I came and the progression I had from, I'd never really done a training camp or been at a facility where I had ridden multiple days in a row. It was always just something purely for fun all the time. So after I went and had some lessons and a coach, and the progression I made was skyrocketing. So just that little bit gave me and my dad the itch. That's when it kind of something started to click. Man, maybe I can do a little more with it than just race at Baja on the weekends.
Yeah, and exactly. And growing up in Canada, you grew up in Michigan. We're accustomed to, like, we have a limited time on a motocross bike, and then the winters for me was spent playing hockey or doing snow stuff. For you, maybe you did a little bit of travel to try to ride, but very limited, and it takes a lot of money to get down south to these tracks, these facilities, and start training. So then you started doing that when you were 17, and I know that your career kind of led you a different path than most. You went to Europe to race. Tell the people, because I don't even know much about it. I know you rode for like a Bud's Kawasaki. Give us a little background on what you did in Europe.
Yeah, so I got connected with the Europe thing through my good friend Darian Sinai. Me and Darian trained together for 2 or 3 years straight at Club MX, and we became good friends. Darian was sponsored by Monster. He received a deal. He didn't get a deal straight out of Loretta's to go pro, so he connected with Monster. Monster hooked him up with a deal to go race EMX 250 for Bud Racing Kawasaki. Darian had a good year in EMX 250, picked up an MX2 deal, but he maintained a good relationship with Bud. Bud reached out to Darian after they had a rider fall through from the previous year, and they're like, hey, do you know anybody that's decent that'd want to come race the European Championship? And Darian recommended me, and I'm like, I got paid a salary, gave me a car, gave me a place to live, full team, sponsored the whole thing. I got to race, like, I think it was 10 or 11 of the European MXGP rounds in the EMX class, and it was like, it's a pretty cool opportunity, you know?
Yeah, that's
like, why not?
Especially young age. Now, how many years did you spend over there?
I did 2. So the first year I was 22, and I had an opportunity to come back and race the MX2 class. I didn't really have an opportunity, I should say. But since I made some connections and I did decent, I think I got 4th in the EMX 250 championship. I was pretty decent overall. And I had, I was real close to the top of the championship. We just had a few bike malfunctions and things go wrong along the way. But I made some connections that year where I kind of made it possible where I could come back and race for a privateer MX2 World Championship team the following year. And since I was 22 and I made some connections, I was like, why not try and go race the World Championship if I can make the opportunity? So I did, and the first half of the year, I went there in December, trained in Belgium all winter in the sand, and it was pretty tough winter for just my mental being. Like, I lived in a pretty crappy flat, terrible bike, terrible team, and it wasn't like kind of how I was imagining it. It was a pretty big struggle, and I ended up doing the first few rounds with a Honda team, and things were progressively going downhill. We didn't click very well, and I ended up living in Darian's apartment for the summer. I left the team. Things just weren't working out, and I reached out to Mark DeRuver, and he's like, because he was the team, he still is currently the team manager for like the factory Kawasaki effort for Europe. And I reached out to him, and he'd always come up and talk to me at the practice track because I was an American and there's not many Americans in Europe. So I reached out to him, and he gave me an opportunity to fill in for them at Lommel. And like, it was just cool, the progression, because my first race back, I hadn't ridden in 3 weeks, and I jumped on the factory Cali bike, and I went from being like a 20th place guy to a top 10 guy at Lommel, which was a pretty big deal for me. Seeing last year, I didn't even finish the race when I tried to race there. And just to have that progression and the team, like, this shows what having a good support group behind you can do for you to give you the results.
Exactly. And then going into this year, obviously last year we seen you actually had the red plate at one point in the series. You won an overall in Prince George. But this year I feel like having that extra bit of support, obviously Sky Racing's a smaller setup, now going to one of the bigger teams. That's the same thing that you did with Europe, right? Having a smaller setup and then going to the bigger setup, the results come, and just having that support. But along with that support, sometimes the pressure comes. Do you feel that pressure from those guys yet? Like, obviously we haven't started the season, but what are your feelings?
Yeah, no pressure yet. The team's been so great to work with. I've clicked great with Chad, with Christian, with Mr. G, and my mechanic. We all get along great. I got to hang out with T-Dags for a little while in California. We did some testing, and just feels like natural. You know, we all fit together great. No pressure as of right now. I mean, we all have the same goal in mind. We all want to win, and no, I think it's going to be a good year. I think having that support behind me is, you know, what I need for next year or this year, and you know, I think I can build off last year.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, going forward, is it a 2-year contract that you're with those guys, or is it just a 1-year deal?
Yeah, it's a 2-year.
Oh, 2-year, perfect. That's always nice too. Kind of like takes a little bit of pressure off going forward. You know, year one, you can push for that. And obviously, your name has been thrown around in that 250 class for possible championship. Obviously, you got guys like Pettis and Rensland out there. What are your expectations this year? Is it title or is it just top 3? What is your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to start out the series on the podium and be there at the end of the year for the championship. Like you said, Pettis and Rensland, and I think Dakota Alex are all going to be thrown in the mix in Tanner Ward too. He was real close last year for a lot of podiums. So I think it's going to be a tight year between around 4 or 5 of us that are all going to be around the same speed. And when you know the tracks too, it helps to kind of get a little head start on the beginning of the races and get comfy a little easier. So I'd like to ideally, for my goals, is have good starts, because that's a little bit where I lacked last year, and put myself in position early in the race. That's where I need to put my focus, I think, because it's never really been a fitness thing for me. It's just getting there at the beginning.
Well, I'm excited to see you race that Cowie. Obviously, I seen you down in Tampa ripping it up, very aggressive on that bike, looking good. But man, I appreciate you coming on, Marshall. We'll have to obviously catch up with you once the series starts. We'll get some at the races interviews. We can do it live. But thanks again for coming on, man, and best of luck with the training leading up to the July start.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Day one, Fox has created products with intention and purpose, so we can inspire your best ride, your fastest race, your greatest adventure. It's how we connect and how we dream. We were made for inspiration and for possibilities, for fast starts and long journeys, for challengers and for champions. Fox was made for you. So get out there and do what you're made for.
Welcome back, and I'm now joined by Julien Perrier from Team PR-MX Kawasaki. Julien, good to have you on, man. It's been a while since we've seen you, the Supercross there, the Triple Crown at the end of the year.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, what's so quarantine time? What have you been doing in Quebec? You guys been trying to keep low key. I know that you since Supercross stopped in the States, you've probably been back home just hanging out.
Yeah, I've been back home working on a couple things, working on my graphic company, spending some time with my girlfriend and my newborn. So it just turned 6 months, so I played the daddy role as much as I could. So
yeah,
enjoyed every minute of it. So we stayed quiet, but still the business has been decently okay, and still working on dirt bike stuff all the time.
Well, congrats on the newborn, 6 months already flying by. I'm sure they love having you home, because the Supercross would have just been closing out a couple weeks ago, so you would have been busy with that. Now, just before the show, you told me that you're trying to get back to the States. Obviously, Supercross starting back up. All your guys are out buzzing around on the Supercross tracks, and you can't get there. What's the deal with that? What's the holdup?
Well, they say non-essential travelers cannot cross the land border, but I had pretty nicely done like papers from Feld, from AMA, saying like it was essential for me to be there as the right functioning of my team and the rig and all the stuff that we got going on there. So we were so confident, so we just hopped in the Sprinter, me and my crew chief mechanic Fred, and we just drove to Sarnia and got turned around.
Yeah, our neck of the woods there, and you got turned around.
Yeah.
Should have stopped in here at Jetworks.
I should have, but I was a little bit pissed, if you want to say. So I was just like, oh, let's go home and try to figure something else, because the guy at the border just didn't even read the paper, and they kind of make it sound like, oh, let's just shove them back in their country.
Yeah.
He gave me two options at the end, because I was trying to get more information really politely and really like nothing. I didn't even argue one bit with them, and he said, I'll give you two options. Either I handcuff you and put you in jail for 24 hours, or you get the hell back in your country. I'm like, well, I guess I'll go back home. So
I'll go back home. That's unreal.
Home we are.
That's a crazy and that's a far drive for you guys. That's got to be about a 10-hour drive. So that's a
commitment. 10 hours, yeah.
20-hour round trip, and then just that's a tough one to swallow there. But I'm hoping you can get there. Obviously, the team's going to get fired up. Who do you have right now on the team that's racing coming up here?
We have Josh Cartwright, 450, Kate Clayson, 450, Logan Carno, 250 West, Lorenzo Lucurcio, 250 East, and we just done a deal with Cheyenne Harmon to do 250 West, and he's going to come to Canada if everything goes well. We're going to see him up here too. So that's what we have right now. Justin Thompson is still injured, which is not your Justin Thompson, but he's from South Africa. So yeah, he's gonna come back probably in the Supercross AX portion of the Triple Crown.
Yeah, no, I seen that. And quite the squad you have, and I seen that you just signed Harmon. He was obviously national number 17 up here, career number 17. So it's good to see him back after his leg injury, and I got to see some videos of him on the Kawasaki looking unreal. So exciting news for the PR-MX team moving forward. So I just wanted to rewind a little bit. What got you started in this? It seems more of like a hobby for you. You kind of have a lot of things going on. How did you get started in the team manager business?
How do I mean, it's a long story, so let's do it as short as possible. Since I was like smaller, I always enjoyed, any dirt bikes or even quads. Like most of the people know, I used to race quads too in the back in the days, and I didn't have much funding to do it and stuff, and I was not that great at any of those sports, but I really, really, really loved it. So by the time I was, getting older and getting a little bit more funds and stuff, so I just started helping people out and started PR-MX as, selling parts and accessories to racers and stuff, and I just fell in love with it. And as every year comes by, I mean, it just pushes me to continue, and as I see more like results and like you have to see some sort of positive every year to continue and don't stop, because there's a lot of negative in our sport, as you guys know, with all like the people talking around the industry and like just people the way they see us sometimes. But I mean, I'm just want to continue and push as much as I can, because this year was the best year I could have imagined, and then here came Corona. But it's getting to a point where I'm slowly not doing anything else other than PR-MX selling parts and PR-MX the race team and the graphic company.
Yeah, and in Quebec area especially, I see a lot of amateur riders running your graphics, so that's pretty cool. And you've created a home for a lot of good riders that would just be doing it privateer style, doing it on their own, and you're able to give them bikes and travel, which is the U.S. series alone is a lot of travel. Then you come up to Canada. Usually we only see you select outdoors in the fall for Supercross, but this year, do you guys plan on doing a little bit more of the Triple Crown once that starts up in July?
Yeah, once everything is like 100% finalized on your hand and my hand, also I have tons of stuff too. I have to bring back the semi. I got to go to the States. I plan on doing the outdoors with riders and trying to do everything till fall, because the way it's made this year, it sucks we're not going out west, but I'm from the East Coast, so I'll be able to manage to do all the rounds without breaking three legs, which I only have two. So we will do the full swing, as you want to say.
Yeah, and that's with Cheyenne Harmon, Josh Cartwright for sure. And what was the other rider that's going to come with you up here?
We're trying to make something happen with Lorenzo Lucurcio in the 250 class.
Okay.
I mean, everything seems good so far, but our focus right now with every rider, if it's Josh or Cheyenne or everything, is to finish Supercross strong and try to show the best results possible. Even if it's all in the same place, we want to perform and we want to be like in the main events all the time and crack them points.
Now, and Cade Clayson, is he another rider that might come up to the Triple Crown?
I really doubt it.
Yeah.
I really doubt it. And it's not that I don't want to, and it's not that he doesn't want to. We had a couple conversation, and we both agreed that for what he wants to do in his career and stuff, it was the best for him to just stay around home and get back to Supercross as soon as possible for him after the outdoors, if you want to say. So he wants to stay strictly like Supercross and stuff for the future.
Yep.
But you never know.
Yeah, well, he was a great talent up here.
Anything can happen.
Yeah, anything can happen. You can talk him into it. But he was always a great talent up here in Canada, so we appreciate watching him over the years, and as well as all the guys you get going. Logan Carno, he's always an indoor-only guy, so great to see him. Josh Cartwright, and obviously the new signing, Cheyenne Harmon. Man, we really appreciate you coming on, Julien, all the way from Quebec. We wish you the best of luck getting that team into Supercross and you getting over the border. But we'll have to check back in with you once the series starts up here and see how the boys are doing. And good luck with Supercross, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
You've got the ride, and we've got the parts to keep you going. Royal Superstores, with massive selections of products no matter what your power sport is. Top brands you've come to trust. Huge selection, amazing prices. Your one-stop shopping destination for the rider in you. Royal Distributing, Canada's power sports leader. Shop online, by phone, or in one of 4 retail locations. Fast coast-to-coast shipping right to your door. Royal Distributing. Eat, sleep, ride.
This week's social media check-in, Gauldy, we're actually going to check in on our social networks, where you can find us on all the social networks across there. We got the Instagram, a lot of good content going up there, and during the race weekends, we have cool edits going up there. Facebook, you can find all our events on Facebook. Twitter, you get a lot of links and Race Day Live. And obviously our website, rockstartriplecrown.com. But other places you can find us, Gauldy, let us know where you can find the Rockstar Energy Triple Crown.
Well, your best bet is to go to all of our partners that support us there. Obviously, MRC Racing. Follow us on Instagram. We got the website, mrcracing.com. We basically funnel all the news and everything that the Triple Crown builds, as well as all the amateur stuff that goes across the country. But then our media partners out there, Direct Motocross on Instagram and Facebook. Go follow those guys. Billy Bigwave out there doing a great job just kind of keeping us in the know of whether you're talking to a rider or doing an interview or maybe trying to sell one of his bicycles again out there, which he always seems to be doing. And then, of course, MXP Mag, the official magazine of the Triple Crown Series. The only magazine in Canada. It was funny, when I was in the 90s there, we had 2 or 3 going, and then now we're down to 1. And they do a great job. MXP Mag does a great job. Chris Palmer over there, the lead editor over there, doing the stories and chasing the news. And it's always still cool to see you in print. I mean, no matter if you're a guy getting a picture in there, or if you're reading a cool story, it's still cool to see that print magazine, whether you're doing it during your bathroom time or you're just sitting out on the deck in the backyard reading stuff. There's nothing like seeing a picture in a magazine of a guy railing a berm or doing a nice cool jump or whatever it is. Or a great spread of a start shot is always cool to see. So make sure you follow that on MXP Mag on Instagram, all the Facebooks and all the social feeds. And then myself, I've got Guaranteed MX. I used to have a website. I don't do it anymore because, well, it kind of always gets me in trouble because I'm a little bit too honest. I'm always too honest, and some people can't handle that. So now I'm just a social feed, Guaranteed MX. I post pictures of me and my family, and I like to chirp a little bit here and there and have some fun. And I'm a little bit more simplistic with that stuff for sure. And then, of course, make sure you check out mrcracing.com, and you can find under all the affiliates, all the regions of all the amateur racers, they all have Instagrams and Facebooks and social media if you're trying to find out how to get a hold of your spot in whatever region you race at.
Yeah, perfect little analogy there and breakdown of all that stuff. Yeah, like Guaranteed MX, you run the Twitter on the weekend. You always have anybody that has a phone can keep up with the races with whoever you have running your Twitter. So it's always a good source of racing live.
Yes.
But Anyways, another episode done, Gauldy. Episode 8, and we're going to go on to episode 9. I know that the racing's going to start soon. Ammo, you said June 14th.
Yeah, Father's Day. Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day. That's going to be a great weekend for all the dads and their kids out there. Anyways, on to the next one. Great having you, Gauldy, as always, and we'll see you next week.
Before the lights, before the cameras, before the crowd roar, before the gate drops, before the first turn, before the finish line, the podium, and the champagne. It's just me and my gear.